Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. I'm Tony Haggerty at a Haggerty 10, and I'm delighted to welcome back after 2-day hiatus back onto the briefing the wonderful Sean Martin at Sean Martin TCW. Good to have you back, bro. How are you? You all right?
Aye, not bad, Tony. I'll need to pass on your compliments to my wife. I don't think she's ever called me wonderful. So,
Well, there you have it. Please let her know you're highly thought of in this parish. All right, so all good. Yes, Celtic stay 9 points clear at the top of the table. 3-1 victory over Hearts last night. We will come to that, Sean, in due course. But as I always implore you every day or ask you to sign up to the Celtic Way, subscribe. And you can hit it with a click of a button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. It'll cost you £2 for 2 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the website. And you can help support top quality football journalism on the Celtic Way, covering the club you love. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We thank everybody that's already done that. And if you're new to it, hit that button. You won't be disappointed. And we also say thank you to our sponsors, SENECA. And as you all know by now, the Celtic Way morning briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Now, Sean, a 3-1 win for Celtic last night.
Yep.
They got there in the end, didn't they? I agreed with the manager. Maybe it wasn't as fluent as it could have been, but 3 tremendous goals, Sean. High quality goals.
Aye, it was. I think to take the result first, I suppose, given it was the second game in a row that they've gone 1-0 down early, and then come back, and you're right, scored some really good goals to win comfortably. I think the result's still a good win. Obviously, any win's a good win at this stage of the season anyway, but I think even in the context, I think it's a good win. Keeps that 9-point gap at the top, and all right, technically it's now a goal fewer in the goal difference stakes, Tony, but I think that's hardly of any consequence. So aye, 3-1 result against the third best team in the league. It's a good one, and it's also a wee. I think maybe going behind, although they ended up winning comfortably, given it's the same opponents on Saturday and maybe 2 different lineups, but I still think that might actually work in their favour. That Hearts gave them a brief scare getting into Saturday.
Yeah, I mean they can't. Andy's 100th game, Sean.
Yep.
74th win, 253 goals. They can't all be killer. There has to be some filler in there, isn't there? Sometimes, and I think I think the results at this stage of the season, there's 10 to go. You're talking about results. Ange wants both. We've spoken about that at great length. The performance and the result, doesn't he? He wants both. Yeah. Got one last night, didn't he? The result, but in the performance aspect of it, the 3 goals were great. Gary McDowell was right. He did say it was going to be 3-1, so big up to Gary.
What was Aiden's? I can't remember what Aiden's was.
Aiden's was 3-0. Mine was 4-0, which was gone early doors. So, yeah, but results at this stage of the season, Sean, are paramount. And you would take the exact same on Saturday, wouldn't you?
Oh, I definitely, especially on Saturday, given the context of it being you're out. You're just out if you don't get it. So, no, I think you're right in the comments. People are right that they weren't at their best, not their scintillating best anyway. But I do think Postecoglou mentioned the way that those 3 goals came about, because that was a glimpse of their kind of best, even though the whole game it wasn't necessarily there. And I think he did say they weren't very fluid, and I think that was a fair comment.
Let's take the 3 goals, Sean. First one, wonderful pass from Ralston to Kyogo. Kyogo squares it to Maeda. Beautiful goal. And I know VAR checks every goal, but why were they checking that for any kind of...
Well, I mean, it checks every goal. It was more the fact that they checked it for so long was what I was kind of...
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're left of right.
Because every goal will get checked, but the fact that it was nowhere near it means it should be a very, very quick check. And I suppose they would say, well, rather we checked it for a wee bit longer and got everything right than not, but they don't get everything right anyway. So I just think sometimes they make a rod for their own back with the length of time. As Postecoglou's mentioned that in particular, not necessarily the technology, not even necessarily the people operating it per se. The time it's taking these people to use that technology is something that he's mentioned several times this season that annoys him more than anything else.
But as an equalising goal goes, Sean, bump, it's in the net. Ralston's pass to Kyogo's amazing. You've got to see that run. The manager touched on that. He made that run a lot and he wasn't played in. Ralston saw it. A lot of people on social media last night were having a go at both fullbacks. We'll come to that. But I thought Ralston actually had a decent game considering it was his first game in months. And had he scored that overhead kick, I think we'd all have just retired.
He tried that kind of almost becoming his kind of trademark now. Yeah, that defence splitting pass in between the left centre back, the opposition left centre back and left back. He tried it once and it was a poor attempt at it. Yeah. But as I always go back to with the kind of Postecoglou resilience, it doesn't necessarily mean just sitting in your 18-yard line and kicking things away. It means trying things and then having the belief to try it again if it was the right decision and just didn't come off. Greg Taylor does it all the time. He might try a wee inside pass like that and it doesn't come off. None better than against Rangers last year where he tried it, didn't work, had the opportunity again a few minutes later and did it rather than going into his shell and thinking, well, it didn't work the last time. And that's the kind of resilience that Postecoglou talks about. Ralston showed that last night because he tried it, it was a poor attempt, and then ended up pulling it off twice later in the game.
Well, he talks about, to
the extent that I says to you, was that Aaron Moy that played that pass? And I wasn't even kidding. I thought it was Aaron Moy until I saw the replay.
And it's the same resilience that the manager talks about Dyson Maeda. He might run at you and lose the ball or get nowhere, but he's going to run at you again.
He's also going to get into those positions every time, whether he misses or not.
And I was disappointed for Maeda because I thought he was playing really, really well. He was getting a lot of joy, and I thought a goal was worthy of his minutes on the field. And I thought it was a cracking goal because he was in tune with his compatriots. As soon as he got the ball, that near post run, he's going to play it in there. I'll get on the end of it. And I thought he was looking really sharp, so to pick up that injury, I was quite annoyed. But I still have to say, if Haksabanovic is the replacement, then
I know.
I'll smile at that. You know?
We were talking last night after the game, and I was saying, listen, even if you were going to rotate anyway for the cup, but say you weren't and Maeda's dropping out, it's not exactly a hardship to be saying that you're going to be starting, say, at Haksabanovic, is it? And it might be, spoiler alert from a predicted lineup, but it might be that I finally get to see that front three that I've mentioned of Haksabanovic, Kyogo and Jota together. It might not be, obviously. It might be Abada, it might be Forrest, it might be anybody fees back, but I'm thinking, I'm getting excited at the thought it's maybe those three.
Yeah. Second goal, Sean, brilliant player from Jota to win the ball back, but his wee dink to Moy is just sublime. It's absolutely brilliant. It opens up the space. And Moy does what he does best. Maybe having a quiet game by Moy's exceptionally high standard. But the movement of Kyogo just walks away from that defender and Moy plays him in. It's a brilliant pass. And you know where it's going to end up as soon as Kyogo's in that position. There is no doubt where it's going to end up. So, again, another three-man move, but brilliantly executed and brilliantly finished.
He made it look quite easy. Just for Aaron Moy, it's a routine pass. But for Kyogo, it was coming onto his weaker foot. But the way that he left that defender for dead, and I think that's probably testament to how much he'd ran before that to accumulate that level of fatigue so that he just physically couldn't go with him because he wasn't actually that far away from him. I didn't think when Kyogo started moving. So he just made it look very, very simple. And then to take it with his left foot like that, wee bit of power in it. I mean, it was just the finish of a man who is feeling it.
That was what John Hartson was alluding to when he said there was Larsson-esque qualities to Kyogo. His movement to just walk away from the Hearts defender and get himself space. That's what Larsson used to do as well. Just ghost into space. I've spoke to defenders that tried to mark him. Hearts defender probably thought he had him and he'd vanished into thin air. Next thing, the keeper's picking the ball out the net because it's as quick as that. And great vision from Jota. Great vision from Moy, brilliant off the ball movement from Kyogo, balls in the net. So once Celtic went 2-1 ahead, I thought that was it. They would be comfortable. There'd be no coming back for Hearts because they didn't do much in the second half in terms of threatening the goal. Don't think they threatened the goal that much at all, but have to credit them for their goal. Thought it was a really good goal, Ralston.
It was, aye.
Position, to be fair, great crossing.
Wasn't it offside? Wasn't it offside for me? Wasn't it offside for you? I don't think it was really, because I saw a bit of a debate, but I didn't think there really was. I thought it was just a really good goal.
Just thought they exploited the space really well, and sometimes you just got to hold your hands up and say they did that well. And it was a jolt for Celtic. But third goal from our man, Sead Haksabanovic, who Haksaw's goal outstanding. Couldn't agree more. Tam-Mak. Haksaw's goal was just well. Yep, indeed, Jason Lee. We've been bigging him up, Sean, on this briefing for a long time. If you regular viewers will know that. We just feel that deep down Haksabanovic's goal, wonderful, Kevin Ferrier, indeed, that we think there's a real player in there and we can't wait. And I was really delighted that the manager said he'd showed tremendous attitude, Sean, and for various reasons he's not had an extended run in the team. But I love to hear that there is no disharmony there. And even Haksabanovic himself just sort of said he's delighted.
Well,
back scoring, the manager's got your back at all times. And
that's what I was going to say. It was reciprocated when Haksabanovic went out and done his interview. I think it was with the BBC, and that is what he said, that he feels as if Ange Postecoglou's a manager who's got your back, and I think that it means a lot coming from any player that plays under you. I presume, right? But it probably means, to me anyway, it means that wee bit more when it's a player who's not really been playing that much for various reasons, whether it was his injury, form of others, acclimatising, whatever. I think it means that wee bit more, because for a player who hasn't been one of your favourites, one of your standout players, one of your stars, one of your regulars, to come out and say, no, I feel he's got my back, I feel he's got what's best in mind for me, and everything that he said, I think that speaks a lot to the harmony in that squad. It
also speaks to me of how do you keep players like that happy? Listen to Haksabanovic's interview. That's how you keep players like that happy. You know, guys that are champing at the bit to get a game and coming on and producing. I mean, beautiful goal, the clincher. That's it. Results beyond doubt then. But you just know that Haksabanovic's got a wee bit of class about him. In all the most of the performances that he's put in, he scored a beautiful goal again. I think it was Ross County, wasn't it, when he guided it in?
Dundee United? No, maybe was it Ross County? I thought it was Dundee United, maybe, but
might well have been.
No, it doesn't. I can't remember.
You know the goal I'm talking about, the angle.
I know, aye. It was like almost like the arc that the Hooper goal against Rangers.
So you just know that there's certain moments that mark you out as having something a wee bit different to offer. And the question is, does he start on Saturday? He starts if Maeda's not fit.
I mean, I've already maybe talked myself into putting him in regardless. But then again, I've tried that a few times and it's not worked. Pete McGee says, does anyone else think that Haksabanovic looks older than 23? I think he does, but I also think he plays as if he's older than 23, because he's got that. It's obviously up there. It's up there rather than a physical thing. But especially in Scotland, he seems to have that wee split second step ahead, that wee extra bit of composure that most of the defenders so far that I see just don't. They bite every time. Because he's been threatening to score a goal like that, Tony, for a while when he's coming on. So, he looks eager to score. He takes some shots. He gets himself into positions. He dummies. He feints. All of that. It was just the finish that was missing the last few times, because he had been doing that to the defenders. This time the finish was there as well.
I think he was also determined to make up for the chances that he missed. In the League Cup final. You could see that was a guy determined to leave the park last night, having got his name on the score sheet, which is good. I like that.
Just before we move on from Haksabanovic, M. Young's coming in saying, if Real Hatati's ever rested, what about using Haksabanovic in that position? He's played there before him as one of the centre mids, 8s, 10s, whatever way you want to put it. He's played as a kind of forward thinking midfielder. I've no qualms whatsoever if he gets used in there. I think he can be used both out wide and in there. He played up front for a while as well, but I don't expect him to be used there. So no, I don't see the problem with that. The other thing I suppose you would say is, if Hatati's been rested, as what happened last night, then you're looking maybe elsewhere in the midfield to get people game to Matt O'Reilly get a start. Depending on the games leading up to this hypothetical situation, has Aaron Moy started a lot? And then you've got David Turnbull to think of. You've got Tomoki Iwata to think of now as well, who came on. You could move McGregor up one. So it's probably not as simple as just saying, right, if Hatati's not going to play, put Haksabanovic in there. But in a vacuum, I've got no problem with him playing in that position at all.
I haven't either. Now, other personnel that came in, obviously the two fullbacks, Sean, Ralston and Alexandro Bernabe. I saw a lot of social media having a pop at both of them last night. As I say, I thought Ralston played very well. A couple of cracking defence splitting passes. One Celtic got a goal from, and the other they should have got a goal from. Ralston made the first goal, Hammers passed the goal, exactly, Jason. And the one in the second half where he defence splitter to Abada, whose cross was terrible. Kyogo was late waiting there for a tap in. Had he done that right, and the manager spoke about that as well. Kyogo made so many runs and could have been played in a lot more. Ralston's cross, yeah, and I'm allowing for the fact that he was ring rusty. But lots of people were picking up on the negativity or the things they did wrong. I'm more a glass full kind of guy, you know. I thought he did a few things right. Granted, he was out of position for the goal. He got caught. I wrote that in the man-by-mans, but I actually thought he came onto a game after that. And as I say, his overhead kick attempt was really unlucky. Ralston rusty, says Alan Robertson. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but I still thought overall he did very well. And I think the overriding factor with Alexandro Bernabe is, I think going forward, he looks comfortable going forward. It's just his defensive abilities that are in question, isn't it? And his distribution at times, Sean, I think, is erratic at best. And his challenge, I just saw earlier, he had a challenge last night, and I think it was Atkinson, wasn't it?
Nathaniel Atkinson.
Highly debatable. Had he been carded of any sort, yellow or red, I don't think he could have had any qualms about
that. Plunge McNugget coming in saying he thinks it was accidental and should have had a yellow card. I think he was running a risk, Tony, is what I'll say. I'll come back to Ralston, but in terms of Bernabe, yeah, apart from that dodgy tackle, and a couple of impetuous moments aside, you've got to legislate for the fact that neither of the fullbacks have had that much game time recently. I know Bernabe played against Morton, but still. Aside from that, I thought he did well in there again, especially in the second half, and especially given that relative lack of match time. He technically got an assist. He gave the ball to Haksabanovic, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing where it goes down as an assist, but obviously the guy who scored the goal did the vast majority of that work. But nonetheless, and there was a comment earlier, I can't remember if I saved it, I did. Gary McDowell, Bernabe's run into the box for the third, took two defenders away as well. So he gave him the ball, but then he continued his running, two people followed him. Allowed Haksabanovic to drift into a wee bit of extra space, and then you know what he did after that. So quite right for Gary to point that out, and I do think there's been more than one comment saying that for both of the fullbacks, Jamie, one of them saying it here, both fullbacks were looking rusty in the first half, but both looked much improved in the second, and I think that sums it up for me. Now we did, when we phoned each other after the game, after you'd done your ratings and stuff, I gave you a phone and you were saying we'd seen a couple of comments about Ralston in particular that maybe you'd marked him too high with an 8. I probably would have given him a 7, but there was people kind of commenting saying to you as if that was far too much, as if he had an actively poor game, and I don't think he was poor. I think Sons of Scotland saying he's not played since December, he's going to be rusty is right. I think when you compile everything, yes, he was culpable for that Hearts goal. But except for that and a couple of fouls, I did think he settled into a good game. Again, to not to hammer home the point, but given it was his first start and his first minutes of any description in the first team since before Christmas. We've talked about that pass to Kyogo for Maeda's goal. It was genuinely superb, top class pass. Not just to play it, but to see it to begin with, because as Postecoglou himself said, not enough players were seeing that. He nearly pulled off an overhead kick as well. You can't really judge a right back on that, I suppose, whether he pulls it off or not, but he nearly did. So I think it's quite harsh to be overly critical of him last night. I think a 7 is what I'd have gave him. I would be pushing more towards an 8 than a 5, though. Put it that way.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, that's that. We all see it differently, don't we? And I'm not saying that. Jason Leaf, Tony asked me that bicycle kick or a cry with joy. I'm not saying that other people's opinions are wrong. I just thought there was it's a bit of a pile on, I think, and especially with Bernabe as well. There was a touch of the Starfelts for me, where people were just piling in on his kind of mistakes he was making and heavily criticising him. And again, go back to the fact that he hasn't played football, as you said, for the Morton game aside. But so I think you have to highlight things that they do well if you're going to certainly criticise them for things that they don't do well. I still think his distribution can be better. I've always said that about him. I think going forward, he can be a valuable asset, but it's his defensive qualities that I think just worry Celtic supporters. Because I think Hearts targeted him as well with some kind of
I think
diagonals with his lack of height, maybe as well.
Andrew Gallier's right though. That happens regardless of who's playing left back, because Taylor's not great in the air either, and they know that Starfelt, even though he's been playing really, really well, is still on his unnatural side playing left centre back. So Andrew Gallier's quite right that they do. Most teams target Celtic's kind of left back, left centre back, that inside right channel for them area, and it's just a lot of things will depend on how well those two deal with it.
Taylor over time, but made the left back position his own. That's what I mean. So there was rusty patch to Taylor's defending when he first came to the club, but now I think everybody accepts that he's an exceptional left back, regardless of his height. You know, that doesn't matter. Bernabe was good second half plunge with Nuggets season. A lot of people saying that now, so maybe watched it again or seen more extended highlights of it. So I just felt that it was maybe unfair on the pair of them, Tony Ralston and Alexander Bernabe. That's all. I'm not saying people are wrong with that. That it's clearly their opinion, but I err more on the glass half full with the certain Celtic things, you know. So top class vision and passing to play in Kyogo, defence split and pass my right back. Bernabe dodgy positioning defensively, but was good going forward when he finds his pass. And Iwata looked really good. I've been really impressed with the cameos from Iwata, to be fair. You just like Haksabanovic. You want to see more of him, but you kind of struggle to see where he fits in at this moment in time. That's your comment, Sean, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I do. I think it's a fair comment. I'm going to just referencing something you said about Taylor there. Pete McGowan saying, remember, it took Taylor at least 2 seasons to reach his sights. I would disagree with that. I think it took people 2 seasons to actually see what he was offering, and for him to yes, of course he did get better, and Ange Postecoglou improved him. But I was always banging that drum that there was a player in there and that people were seeing what they wanted to see a lot with Greg Taylor. And I think both things can be true, that he improved, but he wasn't actually that bad to begin with.
But if you want to talk about good management and good coaching, you will need to look at the progress that Anthony Ralston has made underneath Ange Postecoglou. So it can be done. And I'm sure Bernabe will come on leaps and bounds under Ange Postecoglou. But I just felt that some of the criticism, or I wouldn't say it was over the top, but I just thought it was a bit harsh. That was all. That's all I'm saying. So, but again, like everybody else, every Celtic supporter is entitled to their opinion. I just think maybe because Celtic weren't at their fluent best, and as the manager said, and so it was kind of people were getting a bit uptight until they could relax when Kyogo scored to make it 2-1. Then the easiest thing is to kind of pick holes in the team and what they weren't doing right or properly. But anyone else stand out for you, Sean? Or?
I still think I think Aaron Moy kind of quietly pulled the strings again. A few key passes. I think Callum McGregor actually did have a good game, even though I've seen a few comments saying he was really quite quiet. Haksabanovic we've already spoke about. I think I can't really not mention him. Kyogo, Tony Kyogo stood out again. 25 up.
Yeah, excellent.
It's anyone's guess now who's going to be closest with that final total.
I think I've said 36, Maybe.
Yeah, you said 36, Aidan said 35, and I said 33. And there's every chance I could be out of that relatively soon if he continues the way that he's going. If he continues the way he's going, he stays fit, starts the rest of these games, and Celtic get to the Scottish Cup final. It could be closer to you and Aidan than me.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't dispute that, but it's the hardest part of football is putting in the net. But he seems to make it look easy, and you cannot underestimate his movement. He's always on the move. He is a defender's nightmare, and I think it's a quality that the manager sees as well. But the great thing for me is if he's not scoring, he's contributing. There's an assist last night. Quick thinking, put it in there. I mean, Maeda could have fell over the ball and still scored. The ball was that good. It was just, and I don't know what you thought, but I think Zander Clark was a bit clumsy.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
To get the ball, you know, and
like
he's caught him with a bad one. You know, I give the goal the benefit of the doubt if it was a genuine attempt, but it looked really clumsy to me. And had he missed it or slammed the ball off the goalkeeper, then I would have thought it would have been a penalty because he took him right out. You know, I mean, there was no real chance he was going to miss because the whole goal to aim at. But I would have been interested to see what would have happened if he'd screwed it wide or hit the goalkeeper with it, because I would have felt that was a poor kind of attempt. I know they can say that it was a justifiable attempt, but he did catch him and he's had to go off the park because of it, you know. So I would have wondered what would have happened had he not scored, but he did. And I believe you've won a personal bet, Sean. 10 goals from Dyson Maeda, so someone's buying you drinks, I believe.
Yep, aye. Yes, it was a side bet earlier in the season with another journalist. It was actually from the Managerial, which he'd saw that I'd tipped Maeda to be a dark horse for top scorer and basically said, nah, no chance, not having that. He'll not even get 10. So I smelled blood at that point. I'm saying, well, even if he doesn't end up top scorer, he'll get 10. He'll get to 10. So a couple of pints coming my way, Tony. Yep. It's just a pity he had to take a clattering to get me my bet in. That was all.
Stick with the Celtic way, folks. The boy Sean knows what he's talking about, getting a few drinks on the strength of tipping Maeda to score 10. Well done, sir.
Speaking of people that know what they're talking about, Tony, we're kind of speaking about Kyogo there. Alan Morrison's column is up this morning, and you mentioned Kyogo's movement and still contributing. And I'll put the link in the description. But he's got a great term for it. It's actually the name of a police album. I don't know if that's what he's named it for. But Alan calls him the ghost in the machine. The Kyogo Furuhashi being the ghost in the Ange Postecoglou machine. And he basically starts it off by saying this question, right? Would you think that what use is a striker who is never really on the ball, sometimes doesn't have that many shots and doesn't really create any chances, but yet Celtic striker who fits that mould a lot of the time, doesn't get many touches, does it? I know he got a goal and an assist last night, so it's probably not the best time to be saying it, but doesn't really get that many touches, isn't necessarily known as being creative, and sometimes, like that St Mirren game, didn't have a shot, right? Alan's making the point that despite all of that, even in that situation, as the St Mirren game was, he still utterly changes games. And a lot of that is to do with the movement, the pressing, the manner in which he's I've called him a couple of times the cerebral assassin, Tony, because defenders just do not know, especially in Scotland, just don't know how to deal with him. They don't know how to deal with him. Part of what Alan mentions in that is the kind of cumulative fatigue, mental fatigue and physical fatigue that it causes defenders, even if he's not taking shots. And you saw that with Charles Dunn getting sent off against St Mirren. And I think you saw that last night with that Hearts defender not being... looking as if he wasn't able to follow him in what was a fairly routine run. And then compounded onto that, Ange Postecoglou himself mentioning after the game that they almost done him a disservice by not attempting to find these runs. So Alan's is there for you to read. I personally think it's a really interesting. I always think Alan's stuff's interesting anyway, but I think this is particularly interesting. With a particularly interesting headline, which I've got to say Alan came up with himself, so I can't take any credit for that one this time. But I think it's timely because it's back-to-back games where it's one, St Mirren, no shots, still impacted the game greatly. And then two, Hearts, goal and an assist, impacting the game directly, but still doing it in the way that he did against St Mirren. The only difference was he got his shot and he got his goal.
Which is why he remains Ange Postecoglou's number one striker.
Aye.
When he's fit, he always plays. He plays big games because that's exactly what he brings to the table. Giakoumakis found it hard to oust him from that slot. O's got a job in his hands if he's going to oust him from that slot as well. But you saw last night. I talk about it again, but his movement for that goal was sensational. He just walked away from the Hearts defender. And the minute it lands in his feet, you know where it's going. No hesitation. A high shot, going nowhere near it. Bang. And the minute that goal goes in, everybody breathes a sigh of relief, don't they? They know Celtic are going to go on and win. And it was a question of were they going to score three or more or whatever. before the end because they knew they would pile it on. And Haksabanovic's goal sort of put a kind of decent gloss on the scoreline, to be fair, despite the fact that they weren't great the whole game, but they did enough and they got the result in the end, dug out a decent result. And again, going on to Saturday, I think Hearts' team will be changed greatly as well, but Celtic's might be too. Well, not greatly, but there'll certainly be more regulars.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Now,
sorry, just before we move on from Kyogo, Andrew Galea just reiterating that Ange Postecoglou says that Celtic don't find him enough. And I did find that interesting after the game, Tony, that he made a point of saying it again. It's not the first time he said it, and it's certainly not the first time that we've been talking about him not being found. It's not a new critique. It's, in fact, I would argue it's something that plenty of people have brought up since he signed in summer 2021. But the timing of that comment this time, I think, bodes well, because theoretically, similar to when he says that not enough people were making their runs from deep into the box in central areas, it's going to give people a jump start to go for him that wee bit more often. And that could lead to even more goals than we've predicted.
Of course. Yeah, without a doubt. So that's, we shall see come the end of the season, Sean, how many goals he gets. But yeah, I agree that they don't find Kyogo enough, but you need certain players to be tuned into that wavelength at certain times. Ralston was for the first goal. Jota was when he gave him that pass against Ferencvaros, in Europe, that kind of thing, so... Yeah, and Moy again switched on to just shunt it to him beautifully last night. So that
perhaps the most memorable one for me is he done it a few times. Tom Rogic could find him quite a few times, but obviously the Hibs Cup final.
Free kick. Yep.
He looks up. Kyogo's going to be running. I'll just place that in there. He'll be there.
Of course.
So yeah.
Now we spoke about Ange's comments, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Now, shall we talk about Robbie Neilson's comments?
Briefly, if you like,
He was
is this the decapitation required for a Celtic red card comment? And
I think it was an attempt at humour, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a poor choice of phrase, to be fair. And I'll declare now, I like Robbie Neilson as the Hearts manager. In my journalistic and professional capacity, I got on really well with him. He's one of the good guys, let me say that just now. Some people disagree with that, but I thought that comment last night was iffy, to say the least. But I don't know if it was an attempt maybe to say to referees on Saturday.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
A bit pressure on, which is, if that's its intention, then I guess he's not alone in doing that. A lot of managers do that, don't they? But I just thought it was a poor choice of word. Let's put it that way. That's all I would say, because I do like Neilson. I think he's all right.
To be fair to him, I think the Bernabei tackle was a stoter. So
yeah,
I'd have wanted it looked at if I were in his shoes as well. That said, I do think I think he went a wee bit, even if it was an attempt at humour, but that notwithstanding, I think he's a wee bit overboard with his comments afterwards about decapitation. Etc. A bit childish, but I do suspect it's probably for Saturday's benefit.
Yeah, an element of pressure on the official for Saturday. That's fine. We shall move on from that. Now, Sean, it's an anniversary today, isn't it?
Yep.
58 years ago today, Jock Stein took over as the manager at Celtic Park, and we did a video special with Johnny Owen, who produced the Three Kings documentary. Three Kings being Jock Stein, Matt Busby and Bill Shankly. And I think you're going to put a link to that video special. Yep. If you haven't watched that, I would urge you to watch that, because Johnny Owen absolutely adores Jock Stein, doesn't he?
Yes.
Johnny Owen, Welsh actor, filmmaker, DJ, podcaster extraordinaire.
Man of many talents, Johnny Owen.
Yes. But yes, Jock, who Tony says, Pete with G, you mean Mr. Stein? Okay, Mr. Stein. I'll call him Mr. Stein then, give him his correct title. But yes, he kindly did a an hour-long special with us, didn't he, to promote the book and the film, and it's an excellent watch. Just you want to listen to Johnny and talking about his love for Jock Stein and all those three managers, in particular Bill Shankly and Matt Busby, but his particular love for Jock Stein shines through in that. And 58 years ago, Sean, there you go, eh?
Yeah.
Mr.
Changed
Stein.
forever. Changed forever after that. Well, I suppose technically he was appointed before that, but taking the reins from that day on, I think the next game they won 6-0. I think that's the order of events. He takes the reins officially, and then I think what I say aired real names, but I can't remember, and I think it was 6-0. Yep.
Yeah, and it changed the course of Celtic's history and
of Scottish football's history, of football's history. You could argue. I remember when you very impressively got John Clark last year as a big interview on the anniversary of Lisbon. And we done we had John Clark, we had different things on, and I done a kind of companion piece. I went through all the archives, looking at the run to Lisbon, all the newspaper reports, me tallied up all the goals and assists and all that kind of stuff. But done like a run through of the journey to Lisbon, and I said in that you can make the argument that the history of European football can be separated into before Celtic and after Celtic when it comes to the European Cup, and that arguably all started on this day 58 years ago. Can't
disagree with that. I've said before that Celtic's display, Real Madrid's display at Hampden in 1960, Celtic's display in Lisbon in 1967, before the Dutch gave it its proper name, to me that was total football, Sean. And I won't have anyone say any different. It was a version of total football because Stein was heavily influenced. Mr. Stein was heavily influenced by the Real Madrid side of 1960 with Di Stefano, Puskas, Gento, Santa Maria, all those great players, and modelled his Celtic team on that team, that great Real Madrid side. And
it's what you would call a through line, Tony. It's what you would call a through line in a couple of pieces you've done. I remember on Ange Postecoglou, Ferenc Puskas.
Yes,
and Jock Stein, right? But obviously, you can trace this. It's almost like ancestry. You're saying Stein with the Real Madrid team. You've got the Dutch in the total football. You've got Jimmy Hogan, Rinus Michels. You've got all of that, and there's links throughout it all. And in fact, it takes us nicely to the Three Kings because Jock Stein, Matt Busby, and Bill Shankly all knew each other.
Yes,
as well. All tempered in the coal mines. Some Lanarkshire, some not. But it's I think there's a through line there with all the greats.
It's worth the watch, guys, if you haven't watched it already. It's a cracking documentary, it's a cracking film, it's a cracking book as well, and I would urge you to give it a view if you haven't. But important anniversary today. Pete McGee would big up to Mr. Stein. Indeed, I should get that right in future, Sean. It's not Jock Stein. I didn't know him personally. Mr. Stein to me. There you go. But we move on to Saturday, Sean. Same opponents, different venue. Your man was the hero the last time.
Yes, he was. So he was.
You going for him to be the hero again, or would you like that?
Well, if he's fit, which Ange Postecoglou says that he expects him to be, then I think he will play. So not ruling it out, Tony. No, not ruling it
out. Well, that's been nearly 40 minutes on dissecting last night. I think we've covered all the bases there. I'm sure there'll be something we'll have. Well, I think we've covered them all. If there's something I've missed, put it in the comments, guys. But there you go. But as I do at the end of every briefing, we ask you to subscribe to the Celtic Way. Thanks for the comments. We appreciate it. We always love the interaction that we get in the community that we've built here. It's amazing that you tune in every day. You've made it part of your day. We thank you for that. And it costs you £2 for 2 months of unlimited access to everything that's written on the website. You can read Alan's stuff today. You can go and check out the Three Kings video if you want. All for the click of a button. www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. That's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. We also say thank you to SENECA, and the Celtic Way morning briefing is now sponsored by SENECA Medical Group. And SENECA are the #1 hair transplant company in Europe, and they offer innovative hair restoration treatments. And you can find out more about SENECA via the links in the description of this video. Sean, Trebles on the line on Saturday. Winner takes all match. With same opponents, Hearts at Tynecastle. I always love Tynecastle. It is a bear pit. It's tremendous. The atmosphere is always great. It will be heightened because it's a quarter-final of the Scottish Cup and there is something to play for, something on the line. And says these are the kind of games that gets his juices flowing. I'm sure the players will be the same. But they take the bragging rights going into this one, don't they, Sean?
Oh, aye.
But it counts for nothing. Need to turn up. Need to play again.
Look forward to previewing that tomorrow, Tony.
Yes.
And score predictions.
Start
talking about some of those positions that I was talking about today and see if between then and now I've actually second-guessed myself and changed a few things. Or...
Whisper it quietly. Haksabanovic is going to be in Sean's start 11. I'll shout it out to everybody. But no, brilliant, Sean. Good to have you back, sir. Enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. We'll take care. Terrific Thursday. We'll see you for a fabulous Friday tomorrow.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.